Sometimes love doesn't die in storms. It quietly expires like milk left too long on the shelf. Unnoticed until one day, it just doesn't taste the same. Welcome to Broken Truth, where love meets lies, and every story reveals the pain behind the smile. Some betrayals aren't fueled by passion or desire. They're born in silence, in relationships where love is treated like a season. Not a lifetime. One partner may slowly detach long before the other even notices. Over time, routine replaces affection, familiarity replaces intimacy, and the bond becomes something to mourn rather than protect. Betrayal, in this case, doesn't come crashing in. It walks away slowly, like someone packing for a journey they knew they'd take all along. When love is held with an expiry date in mind, one person eventually starts searching for their next beginning while the other is still holding on to the middle. It began the way soft rains do, unnoticed until everything is quietly soaked. When Arav met Meher, it wasn't fireworks. It was something gentler, a kind of quiet recognition, like the feeling of a half-remembered melody brushing against your memory. They found each other in a season neither of them could name, both healing from past hurts, both tired of love that came like storms and left like wreckage. And so this time they went slow, or at least he thought they did. She had eyes like monsoon evenings, warm, vast, but always a little distant. He mistook that distance for depth. And maybe it was, in the beginning. They'd talk late into the night about poetry, silence, grief. She told him about the time she lost someone she never got to say goodbye to. He held her as she cried, not realizing she wasn't just crying for the past. She was teaching him how she'd someday leave too. They didn't plan trips for the future. She always said, "Let's see what happens." He thought it was spontaneity she never liked. Picking out curtains, didn't want to look at apartments that had extra bedrooms. Never mentioned families or old age. And when he brought up the idea of a dog, she smiled, then kissed him to change the subject. At first, it felt romantic, the kind of love that existed entirely in the moment. She made every day feel alive, like they were writing something ephemeral, a poem scrawled in the margins of time. But as weeks became months, the pattern stopped feeling like poetry. It started to feel like pause. She never said forever. Not even once. Arav, on the other hand, loved her as if there were no end. He planned in silence, bookmarked houses they could live in someday, thought of names for their imaginary child, tucked away little thoughts of a future he never doubted. But the cracks were there. Her eyes always lingered a bit too long on doors. Her bags were never fully unpacked. She moved through life like someone who knew how to vanish without leaving a trace. Her love was real. He never doubted that. But it was a love with borders, fences he wasn't allowed to cross. There were moments he caught her staring out the window. Far away, when he'd ask what she was thinking, she'd smile and say, "Just clouds." He didn't realize the clouds she watched were the ones she planned to drift away on. The night before she left, they had dinner. She laughed at his jokes, touched his face softly, made love like someone who wanted to memorize him one last time. And he, naive and open-hearted, believed it was just another day in the life they were building. But the next morning, she was gone. No slammed doors, no dramatic letters, just an empty mug on the table, her scarf folded neatly on the couch, and a silence that felt like an ending. He waited, called, texted, begged for a reason, but there was none. And somewhere deep down, he knew there wouldn't be, because this wasn't a betrayal born from cruelty. This wasn't an affair or a fight or a lie. This was a farewell. Written from the beginning, he just hadn't seen it. Grief, he learned, doesn't always come from sudden loss. Sometimes it arrives slowly. Like twilight, so gradual you only realize it's night when you can't see anything clearly anymore. He moved through the apartment like a ghost for days. Her scent still lingered in the pillows. Her laughter echoed in the kitchen. He found a book she'd left behind, a pressed flower between its pages. He didn't cry immediately. Instead, he stared at that fragile bloom for hours, thinking, how do you mourn someone who was never truly yours? The worst part wasn't her leaving, it was knowing she always knew she would. And somehow, she had loved him anyway, with kindness, with warmth, but never with permanence. He replayed every conversation, every time she hesitated, every time she said maybe when he needed yes. It was all there, hidden in plain sight. The expiration date stamped across their moments like invisible ink, visible only in hindsight. His friends tried to comfort him. They said, she didn't deserve you, or you'll find someone better, but he didn't want someone better. He wanted the illusion back, the version of her that felt like forever. He wasn't ready to accept that he'd built a home in someone's temporary shelter. One evening, weeks later, he stood at the edge of the sea, the place they used to visit. She once said the ocean scared her, that it felt too big to belong to anyone. Now he understood what she meant. Maybe love, for her, had always felt like that too, something too vast to be kept. He didn't hate her. That was the cruelest part. How do you stay angry at someone who left gently? Who never made promises? Who kissed you like sunrise and left like sunset, quietly, beautifully, unavoidably? The betrayal wasn't loud, it was soft. It was the kind that creeps into your bones, into the hours used to share. It was the betrayal of someone who held your hand while already letting go. He wished she had broken a vow. At least then, he could point to something sharp, something blameworthy. But all she broke was an illusion, and that somehow hurt more. He tried dating again, but everyone he met felt like an echo. No one laughed like her. No one paused between words the way she did. No one made silence feel like poetry. But he also started noticing things he'd missed before. The way some people looked at him and saw a future. The way they spoke in plans, not riddles. The way they unpacked their bags. Healing didn't come as a moment. It came as a slow, aching acceptance that some people come into your life not to stay, but to teach you how deeply you can feel and how quietly you can break. One night, lying alone in bed, he whispered, I loved you like forever, and you loved me like a season. And somehow that line didn't sting as much as it used to. It was just true. He still missed her. He probably always would. But he had stopped waiting for her to come back because he understood now. She was never running away from him. She was just walking toward the life she always meant to live, one that didn't include permanence, one where love wasn't a place to settle, but a thing to pass through. He folded her memory gently, like a letter never sent, and tucked it into the quiet parts of his heart, not to revisit with pain, but to remember with honesty, because some loves don't end in flames. They fade like soft music, lingering just long enough to make the silence louder. And he finally began to listen to the quiet. It began with a morning that looked like any other. Sunlight soft on the curtains, birds outside calling the world to rise. But inside the room, something was different. Arav sat on the edge of his bed, no longer hoping for her text, no longer replaying what he could have said. The ache was still there, yes, but it had settled into something quieter, something more manageable, like a scar that no longer stings when touched. For the first time, he wasn't angry, he wasn't confused, he was simply tired of giving his heart to people who didn't bring bags to unpack. The realization didn't come like a lightning bolt. It arrived slowly, over weeks, while folding laundry alone, while passing their favorite bookstore without stopping, while setting the table for one. It was in those small moments that truth sank in. She didn't leave because he wasn't enough. She left because she was never meant to stay. That difference changed everything. Because the pain of feeling unwanted, that runs deep, but the clarity of knowing it wasn't about your worth, just their path, that's what allows grief to finally exhale. He let himself mourn, this time not just her, but the story he had written in his mind, the life he built. In his heart, the some days and maybes that were never actually on her map. And as he sat in the stillness of it all, something soft inside him. He stopped blaming himself for loving fully. He stopped apologizing for wanting permanence. Instead, he began to ask better questions. What does forever actually look like? And why did I settle for someone who never mentioned it? He looked back not with bitterness, but with honesty. There were signs, not cruel ones, but quiet ones. The way she never said next year. The way she always hesitated before saying us. The way she stayed with one foot already out. The door, and now, with clearer eyes, he made himself a quiet promise. Next time, I'll pay attention to the tone, not just the words. Next time, I'll ask what they're looking for, and I'll believe the answer. Next time, I won't fill in the blanks with dreams. Healing didn't mean building walls. It meant learning how to open his heart with eyes wide open. So he started slow. He wrote again, not about her, but about himself, what he needed, what he hoped for, what he deserved. He went on walks with no destination. Let the wind guide him instead of memories. He made peace with silence. He learned to sit with his own presence and feel held. And eventually, when someone new entered his life, someone gentle, someone kind he didn't rush, he watched for. The little things. Did they speak in futures? Did they ask about us? Did they stay when things got quiet? He didn't cling, he didn't chase, he just observed, and for once, he didn't lose himself trying to be enough, because now he knew half love always shows up in small ways, and full love never makes you wonder if you're asking for two. Much he still thought of her sometimes, not with longing, but with gratitude. She taught him that love can be beautiful and still not be built to last. She taught him how to mourn with grace and how to rebuild without resentment. Some goodbyes don't happen at the end. They're baked into the beginning. You just learn to taste the truth later. Now, he lived with his eyes wide open, his heart still tender, but no longer empty, and in that quiet, steady way, he healed. Some loves were never meant to last, but that doesn't make your pain any less real. If you've ever loved someone who is already halfway out the door, this space is for you. Subscribe to Broken Truth, where we uncover why people betray in love and how to survive it.